Hi everybody, it's Kathy from Huckleberry Herbs and Art, and I'm going to show you today how to make this pretty card. We're going to do an Easter one, but I needed one that was congratulatory, and I used the flowering dogwood paper from Heartfelt Creations and some vellum and some of their dies, and we're going to make an Easter card of the same. So really all you need to get started is a 10 by 7 piece of white or whatever color you would like to use piece of paper, and I have this already pre-scored down the center so that we can fold it in half and use our folder and crease that. Okay, so it's just a basic 5 by 7 card to start with. And we're going to use the Dogwood chapel stamps, all of the stamps in that collection. And we're using the dies from the Delicate Border Basics. Alright, so the first thing that you have to do is get this cut along the edge. Okay, so I just took out of the Delicate Borders dies this die right here and this die right here, so the top two, and I placed them like so and opened this up and ran it through my Big Shot Plus. Now if you don't have a Big Shot Plus and you can't run a paper, because when you pull it out you're going to have to run it like this. If that's too wide for your die cut machine, then you could just cut this paper, use a separate piece of paper, just a thin strip of white paper, and make your decorative part and then glue it onto the edge. Okay, that's just one way that you could solve that problem. Alright, so once you have the edge die cut out, we're going to come back and we're going to take a piece of the flowering dogwood paper, and with this one I took just the second one that has those pretty little almost fleur-de-lis looks to them, and I cut that on the edge, and you can before or after size it so that the designer paper fits on top, and so you have your fleur-de-lis here, your other design from the top die cut with all the swirls on it, and that's on the understock, and then on the edge of the cardstock or designer paper you have this die, and you might want to leave it just a little bit longer than needed because we can always cut this off of the edge once we're done. So what I'm going to do right now is glue that down so that we already have 3 layers of that pretty edge. So I'm just going to get some glue on the paper. So you want to lay this designer paper one on top of the cardstock, leaving a little gap so you already have 3 layers. Alright, and just press that down. Now, as you can see, we have this edge here. I'm just going to take this away for a moment and cut that off. So now we have the designer paper, which has been die cut on the edge. The outer front flap has been die cut with 2 different border dies. And I have just taken a strip of a different color pink toned paper, and I'm going to take my Distress Oxide worn lipstick. I'm just going to edge that so that I can add a little color to that. Can't have too much pink, right? And I've been having such fun with these Distress Oxides, and I just love this flowering dogwood. You know, it makes a great congratulations card. It makes a great Easter card. There's so many things for that you could use these cards for with these colors for young girls and lovely ladies. Alright, now I'm just going to put some glue on this, and we're just going to add this as a decorative strip on the inside of the card, right along here. Okay, so that's done. So now the card looks like this. Now all we have to do is some vellum, or parchment paper, which I have once again taken a piece of parchment paper or vellum, alright, and I've used one more time this border die with the fleur-de-lis looking little flower petals on it, and it's actually bigger. It's wider than I need. Now you have to leave it wider so that you can fold it over. But first, before we do that, we're going to put some stamping on it, stamping and embossing. So I've decided, and I want to keep my card right here so I'm sure to stay within the limits, to use this stamp right here. Again, this is from the Dogwood Chapel, and I don't need to ink it up all the way, but because I'm going to emboss this, I'm going to be using my Color Box Mini Frost, because I want to do this all in white. So I'm just going to stamp right here so that it looks as though, and again, I just want to eyeball it for a second and make sure that where I place this is where I want it placed. Okay, so right there. So we have that, and then I'm going to have, just like I did on the other card, a teeny bit of the flowers poking up here off of the bottom. And then I'm going to take this stamp here, which has the crosses on the hill, and I'm going to ink that up. And you have to use pigment ink. That's why I'm using the Color Box White Frost White. It works really well for embossing, especially on vellum. And I'm going to place that essentially close to the middle, just like that. And the last thing on the vellum, Happy Easter, ink it up, and I'm going to put that right above the cross, hoping that it's straight because I'm far away from this. Very difficult to film when you're doing these things. Oh, I lucked out. It's somewhat straight. Okay, now, can't see it very well on the video at the moment, but I have some white detailed embossing powder. And I'm going to cover all those wet ink spots with the powder. Now you could have gone with the some kind of powder or something before. I probably should have, but if I have any problems, I'll check before I actually turn on the heat gun. And you can see that right there, I think you can see it, there's a little spot. I don't want the embossing powder there, so I'm just going to take my brush, get rid of that, check and make sure all the rest of it's all cleaned up. Alright, and now I'm going to clean up my embossing powder. And I'll put some darker cardstock underneath, and I'm going to heat this up. You do have to be very careful with vellum and parchment paper when you use a heat gun, because if you get too close, it'll just melt. It'll just shrink and melt. And I find that putting a piece of paper under it or a piece of cardboard helps to keep it from bending, which it wants to bend with the heat, and then it's very hard to straighten it out. You also want to handle it as little as possible, because the oil from your fingerprints or your fingers will get on it. So then you take your scoreboard, and I actually am going to want to do this side, so I'm going to flip it over. It's upside down at the moment, but that's okay. I just want to make sure I make the crease go that way so that I can fold it this way. That'll make sense in a moment. Alright, so I'm just lining up, making sure everything's straight, making sure that my decor that I embossed here is in an appropriate place, that I've left some of the designer paper on the edge so that you can see it. I mean, what's the sense of having it if you're not going to be able to see it? And then I'm just going to move this over slightly and make sure that still makes sense. Yes, okay. So right here, that's the place where I want to emboss, trying not to tear it as I go down. It's probably better if you use one of the small balls, because this tears very easily. Okay, and I even have a little tear there, but I'm not going to worry about it. And now, all that's left to do for the mechanical parts here is to get some glue onto the vellum. You don't have to be perfect with this. I might put a little drop right there just so it's... And you don't want to glue the back here because it shows through. So you end up doing this flap over method. And we're going to place the vellum right on the edge. And right where we want it, we're going to fold over where that score line is. Tuck this in on that score line. I suppose this is the toughest part. And press it down. Alright, then I'm going to come back and give this a bit more of a press. And there you go. So that's what we have so far. And you can see the designer paper and our embossing and all these pretty layers. Now I'm going to take the chapel and I'm going to ink that up with my worn lipstick. So we're going to end up with a very pink, pretty card here. And you could emboss this as well if you used a clear embossing powder. The Distress Oxides are embossable. Not impossible, they're embossable. And I'm just going to place that here. Okay, so I have a pretty pink little chapel. The He Lives stamp. Some more worn lipstick. Put this right here in the center. Hopefully that's straight. Not bad for from the side. Gives us a place to put the person's name, a little message, something nice for Easter. And we have this very pretty card. Alright, now I'm just going to take a piece of cardstock that I've made sure will cover the back. And I'm going to glue that so that we don't see the vellum paper here. Alright, I'm just going to place the white cardstock here. Make sure it's covering the back. And then we have a nice clean backing for our beautiful card. I hope you try a card like this, because I personally just love using vellum and parchment paper and embossing on them. And if you would like the Dogwood Chapel or any of the Borders dyes or Heartfelt Creations or Color Box or Distress Oxides, I have them in my store. Pop on over to HuckleberryHerbs.com and give me a visit. And thank you all. I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, this is Kathy from Huckleberry Herbs and Art. God bless. To the